That video also shows that corruption is good for one thing, for losing weight, right? Because you probably, by the end of the day, you won't have money to eat. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my great pleasure to call upon the founder and co-director of the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, Cynthia Gabriel.
This is the moment, friends. This is the moment. We've been working to try and establish C4 for the last couple of months. So this is the moment, and I'm really glad to see an almost full hall. There's still some chairs to fill, but I'm also told there's a traffic jam. So we hope that by 8 p.m. this place will be full, because this is a message that we want to send to our political leaders that this is it. This is the center that has arrived. Together with the rest of civil society, we will combat corruption together. So let us welcome C4 into the fray with an explosive applause. The most explosive applause. Louder, big loud, louder, louder. Many people have asked me, including some of the pre-launch interviews, what? Another NGO? You all got nothing better to do, right? Well, the truth is, this is not going to be just another NGO, but this is something work in progress that you and I and all of us gathered here and much more outside this room will actually need to make the central focus of our agenda, because we believe that this administration of ours, this government of ours, has actually been playing too many games with us until this Kangkong thing has arrived to show how ridiculous the whole situation is. Now, what does this represent? What does this represent? This represents a very special time that we are in, a post-general election moment when we find the government bullying us one after another, not just by implementing more unjust laws, as we saw in the last parliament session, but now it's payback time. It's payback time because they have started to increase the prices of goods. They have started to implement taxes without actually reducing other taxes. And they continue to mock us with kangkong, with the fact that even when harga barang turun, we don't praise them. But actually, our welfare is not very much in their hearts. And what happens is that we keep reading in the press one story after another about some minister's daughter's wedding being celebrated in grand style, some minister's birthday party being celebrated in so much splendor that he had to spend 120,000 ringgit doing that. Now, this is a question of living beyond their means, and it is something that we're angry about. They tell us to tighten our belts, and they continue to live lavishly. Now, this is an issue that we grapple with on a daily basis. This is something that has become a reality for all Malaysians. Now, what has that got to do with corruption? Now, living beyond the means in terms of public servants, in terms of ministers, is just one of the many aspects that we are concerned about. We're also concerned about the fact that many of the mega scandals that plague our country today. I was just trying to brief Pak Eri in that short time that the video was on. Pak Eri is our speaker from Indonesia and a former Indonesian anti-corruption commissioner. He was asking me what scandal is this and what scandal is that. We have the PKFZ. Does anybody know who's responsible for the 12.5 billion ringgit that was lost?
Nobody.
Do we have an answer?
They're all innocent.
Do we know what happened to the Scorpion 540 million funds that was paid to Perimecca? Was that legitimately used? Who actually benefited from it? Who pocketed that? And then we have the famous NFC. Now, what happened to that? We got the whistleblower being dragged to court. And we know that there is no whistleblower protection in this country, even though we have an ACTA. So there's something seriously wrong here. Who actually is responsible? And who needs to actually be accountable? Is there a justice system in our country that can actually allude to the fact that the corrupt should be punished and the corrupt will be punished? I think not, because no one seems to be responsible for all this money. And whose money is that? It's your money, it's my money, it's our money, and we have no idea what has actually happened to it. Now this is the context. This is the context why many of us came together after the post-general elections scenario. There were people who were saying, yeah, it's so disappointing, let's just get back, do our own thing, let's go overseas, let's study, let's go work with some big corporate firm somewhere overseas. This is the time to get our lives back together. But believe it or not, there were so many people out there that said, hey, something's really wrong here. If we don't work in the next 4 years or in the next 5 years to actually repair the damage and repair the situation that's going wrong with our country, we are going to be headed for even worse times. Now, one thing is for sure, and one thing is for certain. It's really difficult to prove corruption. So why are we all here? What are we doing here if it's going to be really difficult to prove corruption? Especially corruption among the powerful, the elite. How do we catch them? We can't catch them. It's difficult to catch them. But I think the only answer lies with us. We have aspirations, we want a clean government, but how do we actually get to doing that? And my statement for today is that we cannot depend on anyone. I see a number of MPs, even the Selangor speaker is here, which is very promising because we know that there are people in policy-making positions who take this issue very seriously. But at the same time, we know that we have to depend on ourselves. We work with them, but we only have ourselves to depend on. We have to come together. We have to make sure that our government is actually accountable to us. And just a quote from Thomas Jefferson, it says, every experience has shown that even under the best forms of government, those entrusted with power have in time and by slow operations have perverted it into tyranny. Now we must make sure that although we see some semblance of things happening over and over again, and very much so with a government that has been in power for the last 50 years, this has definitely been converted into tyranny. And this is the era, this is the scenario in which we are living in. Now I just want to point out one example. Let's come out of Malaysia for a while. One example. Let us look at India. Let's look at India. There is so much going on in India in terms of mobilizing people power and empowerment to actually fight and combat corruption. Now, India is a very corrupt country, as much as Malaysia is a very corrupt country. But from a movement, there is now a political party which fights corruption as their main agenda. It's called the Common Man's Party. It's an interesting name because they want the common man to actually be at the center of fighting corruption. And this is the message for today. It is you and I that actually have that responsibility to fight corruption. Now, this party started to develop so much appeal. The membership started growing, but it's no way that the party would be able to make inroads so quickly. But the point here is that they won the local government elections in New Delhi and even the chief minister's position, which is incredibly difficult in the context of such a vast country with so many people in there. But this has given us hope around the world. This has given us hope because if we can have politicians focus on combating graft and giving citizens participation and democratic participation a new life, a new hope, then I think this is something that we can do here. The launch of this center is like a drop in the ocean of a much bigger struggle, of a struggle that we actually have to lived through for a long time. We have to gather here today. We have to gather in various different places because I believe we all represent a bigger phenomenon. We want to promote citizenship politics. We want to make sure that the decisions made are all transparent. And we know now that it isn't. We have a Freedom of Information Act in Selangor and Penang, but to be honest, I really don't know where that is at the moment. We are not utilizing it. YB Rajiv had actually put a test case to it. I hope you got your information. Yeah, and the onus is on us because in order to have information, in order to test the borders, we actually need to make sure that whatever has been promised to us is also delivered. Now, the challenge is enormous. I'm not saying this is going to be easy. But one thing I want to emphasize about C4 is that it will focus on two things. It will focus on public sector reform, which means we will look at public money. We will look at how our money is being spent, how our money is being abused, and how taxpayers' money is being actually utilized by the government. It will also work to ensure that we take on more work outside Kuala Lumpur, Petaling Jaya, Penang, Ipoh, that kind of urban centers. We need to actually start working with semi-urban, rural people. We have a director from Sabah. He is unable to be here today. So there is also going to be a greater emphasis on Sabah Sarawak as well as the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia, which means we need to go out, and in order to do that, this center and the work to fight corruption, there are various other NGOs that fight corruption, but together with civil society organizations, with politicians, with academics and the works, we need to actually develop our mass appeal. So for many people who actually say, is this going to be another talk show? And we end it here? Let me say no. Because I think this is just the beginning. We will need to actually take the work outside. Now we will be working with a whole lot of different organizations with MPs, and I must tell you that there's work in progress to build an anti-corruption coalition. That's coming up, so you're going to see even more energy around the work to combat corruption. But I'm not going to say anything more in order not to preempt that. So again, the task ahead is really difficult. Another quote from my favorite Nelson Mandela: difficulties break some men, but it makes others. And it always seems impossible until it's done. And that message is for us. It really looks like it's really bad times now. But it will make us. It will make sure that we don't break. And it will make sure that this kangkong, even though it looks layu, will be our symbol to show that we are enthusiastic, we have energy, and we will continue to show the people in power who are the bosses. Thank you very much.